Home. Home! What is a home? Fancy home you got there, Bob. Would be a damn shame. And if you don't have a home, why not just take one? They are all free. Never forget what you're fighting for. Welcome everyone to Warhammer, a game where right now you can cosplay as a certain nation that I will not mention.
We do not speak his name.
So in Warhammer, there are two regions I enjoy playing in, the desert and Germany. And by the looks of it, a soon-to-be desert. So I had to make a choice. Do I play as this bald religious enthusiast that is on a journey to find Nagash's secret collection? Or a woman who is also French? Being conflicted, I remembered a famous Danish saying. Welcome to Raponse the Lioness, a Bretonnian faction. A faction with questionable moral values attached to peasantry. They are considered a good faction, which you can clearly see. So here is Raponse the Lioness. And as you can see, nothing fancy going on here, except for her ableist views. We are in the coast of Araby, obviously a French region, because this land was promised to us 40,000 years ago by corn. So what are my goals for this great campaign? Well, a short campaign victory, and evict as many as I can before the inevitable happens in about 70 to 100 turns. So our first enemy of the game, Cadon, the old geriatric Romanian squatter, that has evaded rent the same way he has evaded basic hygiene. He also has a very innovative army. Now for our army, as you can see, we also have one. Contrast to the filthy unwashed masses called infantry, we have the heroes of our faction, knights. Or well, anything on a horse really. Because in Bretonnia, these are not people. Damn, they're barely even human. Well, after having a complete mental blackout, I remember something very important. I don't really like the French or Bretonnia. Moving on to Fires, I decided to auto-resolve, and then we ventured on to the province of Al-Haik, which yes, is very French indeed. And after a peaceful resolution, we got the confederation with the Knights of Origo. Now our surroundings are all but friendly, with the local Nagash Glazer, ogres, dwarves, and worst of all, other French. This was going to be very difficult. So left with two choices. Do we go left and engage in clear police brutality against Arkhan the Black, or do we move south and evict this random Egyptian faction that has probably lived here for longer than Bretonnia has been alive? While living in Northern Europe, I am well aware of the French eviction process. First step, meet the recipient. Secondly, engaged in vocal persuasion. And thirdly, firmly interact with what now can be considered as squatters, and then you win. So getting the Pools of Despair, a lovely place, we moved on to the Black Tower of Arkhan. And I am not doing a siege battle. And I'm really not doing it with these units. So in the next turn, we have managed to remove centuries worth of history in only a couple of turns, being offended by a lack of historical preservation. The intellectuals attack. Being the intellectual that the Sand Grinder is, he formulated a great strategy, where instead of fighting me, he will take over my land. Left in a stage of what should I do, I did what I always do. Sell my people to the locals. Selling Pools of Despair, a desert-sided property with growing market value, I got 4,102 gold and a trade agreement with my future subjects. And after beating the OG and his camp, I got the Helm of Dresska, a very rare and very cool item. Seeing that Arkhan the Black has engaged in eugenics, I quickly made peace with Sandgrinder to begin my honorable beatdown of a soon-to-be minority. Well, my first battle with Arkhan, and saying that this is not a siege, I wanted to fight this manually, which is obviously, according to my track record, a great plan. While placing my units in groups, I began the process of mild micromanagement for about 30 seconds, until a realization that natural selection is the way to go. Well, through effort, using that word very loosey-goosey, I managed to win. Well, afterward, I marched on, got an honorable ambush against King... I feel like I'm going to sound really racist reading his name.
Thuthama Munzu.
Well, after only losing my garrison, It is indeed a decisive victory, and after taking another settlement, I got the option of declaring war against Arkhan, which I should not be able to do. While reloading, I moved on and beat up the forces of evil, who were clearly trying to hinder my game, and freed their cities from tyranny, which is a great CRPG from 2016. 8.5 and maybe 9 out of 10. Highly recommend. Whilst taking care of the followers of Nagash, it seems that the bald religious man has infiltrated my lands, or well, my future lands. Taking care of this place, the followers of evils were gone. And I really should start changing the name of the provinces. Like change it to province number 1, just to really get that historic French experience. Now that the lands were clear, it was time for expansion into another's territory. An expedition, if you so will. Don't worry, Sangrider, I come in peace. Well, if you have or haven't noticed, there are water droplets over my lords. Our fragile French bodies needs water. Now this province solves it immediately, which is great. How it works? Just like everything else in this world, magic. Well, turn 26. My armies are doing well, my economy is doing well, thanks to the peasants that are peasanting on the fields, and my borders are getting there. Nothing could go wrong. And that's a very angry looking Skarbrand looking directly at the Tower of Arkhan. Now this is clearly bad. Lucky for me, I got the Green Knight, a mythical hero that will surely stop evil. Fortunately, evil doesn't like unit variety, or anti-large for that matter. While sending my lords and 2 heroes to fight Skarbrand, I know, a brilliant plan. It went just as you would expect. Not good. Fortunately, my units are at the very peak of mediocrity, and his are not. Through hard work, determination, and most importantly, a lack of empathy, I managed to turn this decisive victory into a close one. Well, in my problem-solving ways, what would one more problem do? So beating up Volkmar, as he is technically in the way, I took back Pools of Despair, which turns out was his only settlement. Feeling a sense of human supremacy, I had to avenge my German brothers by declaring war on Wurzag the Scum, telling my people that Wurzag is clearly hiding weapons of mass destruction. Unfortunately, unable to resist the allure of money, I decided to borrow money permanently from my neighbors. Turns out that stealing is not honorable. Could you believe that? But is it really stealing? If they're, well, not alive, well, what's one more war going to do? Now at war with 3 legendary lords, with my army of, well, peasants and basically human rights violations, this is going to be great. So I did the reasonable thing and decided to give my newly hard-earned money to Paradox and defeat communism in Age of Wonders form, which did not work. Well, back to Warhammer. Turns out that Cetra is absolutely awful, to no one's surprise. Taking his land one after another, I was finally at his capital, Khemri. And just because I could, I decided to fight this manually, using what most would probably call a dishonorable tactics. I managed to beat up his units and split them up until I get close enough for my fully armed peasants who are firing arrows, probably worth more than their lives. They managed to finish the job. Fortunately, there was a massive donation in Khemri for me, as money was starting to become quite troublesome, and taking Plains of Tuskers right in front of the big bad greed man feels like a horrible idea, and that's because it is. Losing Sir John the Savior was a devastating blow, quite literally, as I have lost the blessing of the lady. Now, to be completely honest with you, I got no clue what this blessing does, but to be completely honest, I have a sneaking suspicion that it does nothing. Now, leveraging someone else's home, I could use Orion's camp for a peace agreement with Cetra, as you do when you are a growing colonial power in the Middle East. Meanwhile, Wurzag the Great Green Prophet is somehow losing against this garrison. While moving south towards the Suntree Glades, I remember, wasn't I at war with Skarbrand? Well, after taking a settlement, I got the unfortunate, it depends on how you see it, trait. Looter. Turns out sacking is very bad and not honorable, which obviously, after taking Quetzalcoatl, I decided to keep doing. Sacking this settlement, I decided to use it for good, a temporary peace agreement with Wurzag. And here comes a big bad Skarbrand. Using my armies of human rights violations, I bought myself some time before he comes back. Meanwhile, would you look at that, 10 turns have already passed. guess it's time for another war. I believe this move is called a preventive strike. Fighting Cetra again, I managed to overwhelm him with mediocrity. I even had to fight as each battle that I, through luck, preservation, and sheer will, managed to almost catch an aneurysm in. Well, during the age of almost peace, it was time to reorganize the army. With chivalry hitting 4,000, all my lords now start with their initial vow finished, letting me start a new lord with Pegasus Knights, meaning I have to remove all this dirt from my lands. Meanwhile, Raponse, still warmongering in the south, in a war I don't remember starting, spreading the word of the lady. And we all know how that went. This war, well, I call it war, more like a permanent cultural exchange for the orcs. It raged on until Warzag appeared near my lands. Clearly offended by his unfrenched presence, I sent 3 lords to take care of the issue, which they did. While seeing that Brandon Morian was done, it was Bertrand's turn. And it turns out I've recruited an actual imbecile. After taking Quixotle, for the 3rd time, I believe, and the Statue of the Gods, a short campaign victory was achieved, and our goals well met. But this campaign was not yet done. I want to see how far the French can expand before the inevitable gommage happens, and I still got like 6 clips of footage to rummage through, like a poor raccoon with questionable time management. Well, after being happy with my sudden expeditioning, I was bordering the Dino Gang. They seem to have a rampant STD problems on their land, which means that I will not be going there. Well, sometime later, it was finally time to take whatever this province name is, the last stronghold of Warzag in this region. And seeing that the lands were freed from the Green Menace, it was time to free the lands from some other menace. Having Tancred Monstre Flow by 3rd Lord of Grand Proportions, I also gave my 3 lords the pledge to campaign questing vow, because we'll soon find out. So finally, it was time to take over the Black Pyramid, which was not very hard at all. Using Pegasus Knights to have air superiority, this was honestly not fair at all. Of course, as the unit amount exceeded 40, my tiny smooth brain couldn't handle anything more than the good old strategy of attacking and winning. After the Black Pyramid fell down the stairs, I took their gold honorably. I of course proceeded to use the gold to upgrade Rapon's army. Using the good old capitalist strategy, I removed the simple knights that have been utmost loyal to Raponse throughout the campaign and exchanged them to advanced Grail Knights. This of course put my economy in the red, which I don't need to be a Wall Street expert to tell you, it's not good. To fix this issue, I had to start innovating. My first innovation: stealing from the morally bankrupt. Beating up Skarbrand has never been this easy. Using aerial tactics and a very friendly button, I managed to remove Skarbrand's settlements from the game, while also getting the trait Destroyer, which for all intents and purposes fits Raponse rather well. After some time, I finally found Skarbrand. Lucky for me, my armies were built different, and after saying the name upon Skarbrand, turns out he is not. Now all this firepower still requires a hefty income, which I don't have, and stealing is not helping. Rapidly losing money, being bullied for my lunch money by Warzag and Turox, being somewhere here. This was a very dire situation. And not only that, the end is nigh. Well, it was assigned to consolidate my forces. Making peace with Turox and Warzag came first. Unfortunately, their brains were incapable of peace, but I shall at least defeat Skarbrand. As there is only one turn left before the inevitable gommage happens, I consolidated everything. And I kinda forgot that the vampires, they respawn in the desert. And well, fortunately, I got lightning strike with Raponse. And I'm not winning that. But I do gotta say, these Neanderthal looking giants are kinda cool. Too bad that the Tomb Kings kinda suck. Well, time to end this turn. That's about it for the campaign. Thanks for watching, bye!